All right, what's up, everybody? And it is the lunchtime hour. If you're watching this live, a Friday 12:30 edition, and we're still going to be hot and live coming up at 9 o'clock tonight. But I wasn't going to ask the very busy Kevin Kinkead of Crossing Broad to slum it up at 9 o'clock at night. I know with young children, the last thing you want to be doing after working all day is coming on my stupid podcast at 9 o'clock. What's up, Kev?
No, it's okay. I got a big date tonight anyway. I'm taking my wife to Boyertown.
Ooh, your
We're
hometown.
going out to dinner in Boyertown. That's where my parents still live. So
Yeah.
we're like, why don't we just bring the kids to you instead of asking you to watch them for like the 10 millionth time, So yeah, we have
So is that
reservations in Boyertown tonight.
Are they your babysitters, your parents, for the most part?
Yeah. They love doing it though, man. It's like they'll.
But they come to you, right? Because that's my thing. Is my mom always comes to me, and I'd like to find a regular babysitter, but we're not there yet. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why, but I'd like to find a neighborhood babysitter so we don't have to always rely on my parents. I'm actually going next week. I'm going to a detective dinner, one of those dinner theater things where they, like there's a murder or something.
Oh yeah.
And you have to solve it. Yeah, it was for my wife's birthday, and I'm like, what can I do that's like different and not cookie cutter that we can go and have fun? So that's what we're doing next weekend. Well, congratulations on the date tonight. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Man. Yeah, we just now we do have a local babysitter, but we usually meet my parents halfway, and our drop off and pickup spot is the Wawa in Skipack.
Right there on 113.
Yeah, Route 113 and 73, and we do a child exchange there. Completely legal. But
do you feel like you're doing something illegal? Like it's well, it could be like a divorced mother and father type thing where that's where they meet up to do the handoff. But
that was my favorite thing about living in Philly, by the way, is when you're on a one-way street and the car stops and like the mom gets out to give the kid to the dad or something. I got to sit behind them for like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's like, come on, do the handoff and move. Keep going.
Get the kid out of there. Drop the kid off to the divorced mom, and let's get on with it here. So.
Hashtag life. Well, listen, I know you're very busy. Thank you for a few minutes. I wanted to start off and I'd like to do a semi-regular media podcast with you because I love the ins and the outs of radio, TV, and everything else. And it's really what I think you guys do. Among the great things you do at Crossing Broad is really the media stuff. It's what I tune in for almost every day. So I know at the beginning, it was Tuesday, I think it dropped, that this was an exclusive by you, that our friends over at Jakib Media, who, I mean, they have an imprint in the Philadelphia sports landscape for sure. And this wasn't anything that came to a shock to me because, like you, I'd heard this for a long time, that they were, not that they weren't outright paying people altogether. It was just a pain in the ass to get paid. Some people never ended up getting paid because they gave up. And then other people were just, they were getting the runaround when they were trying to get paid. So tell us what you heard. Tell us what you reported, and how did Jakib Media respond to it?
Yeah. So the story was about people at Jakib Media not getting paid on time or months late or sometimes not at all. And I think it was put on my radar and Anthony's radar. Anthony at San Filippo helped out with the story too. And probably like last summer, like June, July or whatever, and you hear from people who just say, hey, we're not getting paid over here. We got to chase down money, or I'm not getting anything at all, And then it kind of, more people start to talk, and then it gets to a point where things kind of, I put it, I have like a whiteboard over here on the side of my office that has like a list of stories to follow up on, and that was one of them. And then I started hearing more about it, and I'm like, all right, well, it's time to make some phone calls and ask people what's really going on here. Because, it's funny, man. It's like, I worked as a freelancer, like a 1099 contractor in Philly for a long time, and I never got paid on time.
Right.
So I'm like sitting here thinking, is this a story of people getting paid late? Like, welcome to the club, But as you start to talk to people, you hear, hey, I'm owed like $7,000, or it took me 7 months or 9 months to get this. This person still owed X amount of dollars, and then you're saying, all right, well, that's probably a story. Then so yeah, we just kind of talked to probably more. What did I write in the story? Like 10 or 11 or something like that. We talked to a lot of people who had who had worked with Joe Kraus over at Jakib before, and just varying degrees of having trouble getting paid and late or not paid at all. And so I kind of collected all that and put that into a list of bullet points, kind of outlining what we were being told, and that's always how these stories kind of go, because like when you're dealing with sensitive stuff like this, it's always going to be on background, right? I mean, there's the only people who went on the record for the story were Hal Donnelly is the CEO at Philly Voice, and he said that they were cool with Jacob and had no issues or whatever, but otherwise,
Right.
people are going to be on background, right? But yeah, I mean, the gist was that like just having trouble getting paid. And I did, it's customary, John, when you're doing like big J journalism or you have like accusations about people, to offer them a chance to comment beforehand, whether you want to give them 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever they want to take to respond. And Joe Kraus was amicable about it, and called me the night before the story went up, and obviously disputed some of the things that were in there. And I told him, I'm like, I'm happy to put a statement in here, clean up some of the like the background information, contextual stuff that maybe is inaccurate. I can make that make more sense. Yeah, and he gave me a statement and said, we're a startup and we pay everybody on time, and all of that. And that was basically the gist of it. This question actually from Jimmy Moe is the one that I got more than anything.
Yep.
Yeah. He says,
Yep.
well, the insinuation here, right? If you're not getting paid, then why are people still working for Jacob? Well, so, if you have a contract where you have to render services to them, then you have a better, if it was ever going to go to court, you would have a much better case if you fulfilled your end of the bargain, because then they would just, otherwise you're breaking your contract. So,
Right.
that's essentially what it is there. But yeah, and then it's funny, man. I guess get emails after the story goes up, like 5 or 6 at a time, where it's just like, funny you mentioned that, because I had an issue with this person 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and then it all starts to
Yep.
come out from there.
Yeah,
So
this was no like I had said, this was no real surprise to me. I had heard similar things from many people over the years, and I think that people continue to work for Jakib Media because they're still hoping to get paid. And Joe has never totally stiffed somebody, right? To where maybe they had to get lawyers involved, and I know one individual in particular that had to have their representation because they were represented by an agent actually more or less threaten legal action to him. So
right.
I think that I think the issue here is that his business model just doesn't make enough money to pay everybody on time. And I think he actually said as much in your statement that he gave to you, which is, listen, it's a startup, it's a small business. This isn't All City where they raised $7 million to start this. But my response to that is, well, tough shit. Like, then go raise $7 million so you can pay your people. I understand if you're having advertisers that are paying you and they're not paying you, well, that's a you problem, right? Like, that shouldn't be a problem for the people that are contributing to your programming. To what you said earlier, Kevin, and I'm going through it right now because I've done some stuff and I'm getting 1099 and I'm like, oh, we're going to send out the money to you. We're going to send this, send that. And I'm still waiting on a lot of it. And I'm like, well, you made me go through this whole thing where I had to sign up online and direct deposit and send you the W-9 and all this other crap. And you keep telling me it's coming. When is it coming? And here's another thing. I've known Joe Kraus for 15 years. He was a sales executive at Greater Media when I worked at Fanatic. He worked for MGK. He worked for the Fanatic as a sales guy. He worked for the Soul, I believe, right before the Soul folded the first time. So I've known Joe a long time. Joe's a good dude, but I think that Joe's intentions are to pay everybody. I just don't think they have the capital to pay everybody, and that's how you get caught up in this, to where you're constantly chasing your own tail, trying to get enough money. So the person that is owed the most money or the longest, he's probably trying to pay off. Or a guy, and I don't know if this is the case with Seth Joyner. I don't know any individuals. I don't know what it is with all these guys. But you'd think that Seth Joyner would get paid before a lower level person that's maybe owed a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 would get paid. So
yeah, I think Seth is also more likely to threaten to beat the shit out of you too if you don't.
I would pay Seth first, right? I guess that's my point.
If I had to prioritize, that's who I would pay first. No offense to anybody else, but yeah, I mean, you said it there. It's like when you have, yeah. It's funny you mentioned All City, because a lot of people kind of made that comparison when they were thinking about this story, because you're talking about like independent startups and whatnot. All City, people should know, is backed by venture capital, right? So you have X millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars that are thrown into the product, and that floats you for however many years of 2-year or 1-year contracts with your talent, right? Jakib, as Joe pointed out, is like, we don't have a venture capital. We don't have like investors or whatever. They're bootstrap and from the ground up. So right. And as you explained there, man, like, and I can't reiterate this enough to people who are listening to this right now or later, it is like the biggest pain in the ass to get paid by clients. And you would think like, it's a professional thing where it's people are on time with that kind of stuff. Even like at WIP and even at like big radio stations, big TV stations, getting clients to pay is takes forever.
Yeah.
You can be months behind at a time and then finally get it. So,
but they pay you. You don't have to wait for the client to pay the station. They pay you.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with Joe.
You have your investor money or your venture capital money or your own money or you take out a payroll loan, and then you pay your people and then you reimburse yourself, right? It can't just be like, well, I don't have the money when I get it, I'll get it to you. So, because I've had those issues before where it's like, maybe I missed like maybe I wasn't at Channel 3 at one day when they were putting invoices in. So I wouldn't get paid, until I put that invoice in the next time. We're talking like Eyewitness News. Eyewitness News is the most corporate entity that you can have, right? If I'm not getting paid on time by them, then
this should be no surprise.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of Jakib Media is? Because it seems like they have a revolving door of shows, and we probably now know why. Because if these guys aren't getting paid in a timely fashion, like I'll just say me, for instance, somebody that is sitting out a non-compete, but when I am able to work, I'm going to need to work. And something like Jakib Media is attractive because you don't have to leave your house. You can do your show 3 hours or whatever right from home. And as it was mentioned in your story, they almost overpay you to get you to come. Mm-hmm. But like I couldn't deal with having to chase somebody down. I have mortgages. I have a mortgage. I have bills. I can't be at the first of the month being like, man, I don't have enough money to cover my mortgage because this guy's not paying me. So it's attractive, but it's also like I can't deal with that, right? Like I need something more legit. Yeah. What do you think that the future of Jakib is going forward? Because they have a lot of views. Joe will point out to you that he has millions of views and impressions and all that. Do you think they're viable for the future?
I think so, just because this is such a hard industry to break into, and there's always going to be people who are willing to do it for little money or no money at all. One person over there isn't even getting paid, just being.
I know the person you speak of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just totally volunteering, because that's something that they weighed and said, the value that I get out of this does not require compensation, because I'm building my resume with it, which I was fine saying that when I was 23 years old.
Right.
But now I got kids and a mortgage, so it doesn't work that way anymore, but to each their own, I'm like, yeah, Jakib's up to 45,000 YouTube subscribers, and they've got, like 14,000, 15,000 on Twitter. They'll keep growing it. They'll keep having people who want to go there and want to be on these shows. And I honestly don't think much will change at all, which is kind of like, I do this story on them. Do you expect something to change? You would hope so, I mean, we all get into the journalism business thinking that we're going to make an impact, but
unless the cash flow changes or the financial model changes, I wouldn't expect it to. He's making some money through, they have the commercials and they have those other things, but clearly, I think where they went wrong was they obviously had to spend a lot to get a guy like Seth and Mike Miss, because that's like Seth leaving NBC Sports Philadelphia, the actual post and pregame show, to go to Jakib. They had to pay him a great deal. And it's sometimes you think this is what we need to do to make ourselves relevant, but if it ends up screwing you, which I'm sure this was a big part of it. I just don't know if the pre and the post game is worth all the hassle, especially if they're going to have to spend that much money.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because Seth was at NBC Sports Philadelphia. Mike was doing, just was doing his own thing with Bet Rivers and doing his podcast. And some people need the money more than others, right? I think Missinelli will be okay. I think Mike will be all right if he doesn't get paid. But other people have more immediate needs. It was a good podcast with you and Missinelli, by the way, last week or earlier this week, I guess.
No, you did listen to it,
huh?
No, you listened to it. Yeah, a lot. I got good feedback from it.
Yeah, it was good. It's just funny, like how, I don't know, cyclical these things are. You guys go from working together to him calling you Skippy to like now you're on the
VLT, very little talent.
Very little talent. Yeah, that was funny. That's right. I remember that one.
Was what he called
it. It just shows that it's like that's funny how the business works out like that, But
right. And I'm definitely a guy that holds grudges. And if I would have never talked to him again ever. But
Mhm.
like we talked, we cleared things up. You know, like
Yeah.
people were asking me, well, why did you bring that up on the podcast? Because it's over with. I'm not going to bring that up on the podcast. Like, hey, remember when you made up lies about me and called me very little town and said that I
Yeah.
was trying to torpedo Fantasy Fest? We already talked about that, and I'm satisfied with the conversation. And so I'm going to have him on my podcast coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm going to question
Cool.
him.
Okay. All right. No, that's good. Yeah. I mean, it's never anything personal. I mean, we're all just talking business and, professional, ways you carry yourself on air or whatever. I mean, there's never really any bad blood. I mean, I can only remember a couple times where people punched each other in the face, so they're few and far between, few and far between, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what's interesting is like, I had a good point here and I lost it. It was going to be something about All City, I think. Oh, yeah. Okay. This is what I wanted to say. So you remember when, it was like 3 weeks ago. It was when the Gargano was having the lawsuit with All City, and their
Yes,
argument, All City's argument with the non-compete language was, Gargano was trying to say, I don't think that what All City's doing
true competitor.
is a true competitor, right? Because they're
Right.
online and it's YouTube shows and it's written content and whatnot. And the reason that I disagreed with that is because we're all under this big parasol of sports media, right? So let's say that I'm the consumer, right? I'm Bob from Boyertown. I only have an hour and a half that I dedicate every day to just listening to consuming sports media in general. Is that going to be reading an article at Crossing Broad? Is it going to be listening to John Mark's YouTube show? Is it going to be going to all city network or Jakib Media or whatever? It's all we're all part of the same pie. You know what I'm saying? So I don't
Sure.
buy the argument that like radio is over here and then writing is over here and then this is over here. I mean, I think we're all, part of the same condensed,
We
saturated.
all, to your point, we
Yeah.
all compete for people's time. Like you and I with
Mhm.
young families, and like we only have a certain amount of time. I can't listen to every podcast I want to. I can't listen to everything. I can't watch everything that I want.
Mhm.
So you're right. We're all competing against each other. You know, it's interesting about the non compete. Non competes have changed, and I've been, I guess, like maybe 12 years now that I can remember the first non compete. It used to specifically mention terrestrial radio within a certain radius of Philadelphia. So
Yeah.
pretty much, if you were in the Philadelphia radio market, you couldn't work in the radio market until 3 6 months, whatever it is. Now that's no longer the thing. It is now, they call it, and in my contract in particular, they called it audio focused.
Mhm.
So I can't do an audio focused show. That would be considered a competitor. And this is not audio focused because it's a video, and I don't put out just specifically audio. So I'm not putting out audio in a podcast form, and I think that clears me from it. But it all depends on the language in the contract. And it was pretty clear Anthony's language was, they considered it a competitor.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you can go, there's layers to all of that too. Like when Kyle sold the website, sold Crossing Broad to XL Media, all of the non-competitive language that's backed up into that sale agreement at the same, it's not a contract, it's an agreement of sale where it's like, you can't create another website that's like Crossing Broad for X amount of years. You can't hire any of the talent
Right.
or whatever, because if they didn't have that language in there and like Kyle, for example, sold Crossing Broad and then went and started another website, do the same damn thing. Like you're not allowed to do that. So I think the point that brings me all back to the Jakib thing, because it's like, how much time do you have to dedicate to them if you're watching All City, if you're listening to WIP, if you read Crossing Broad? I mean, you're talking like it would take you a full day or more to consume all of the sports content in Philadelphia that's put out on a daily basis. So I understood exactly where Fanatic was coming from, where Beasley was coming from when it came to Gargano's thing, because it's like, man, as sports media evolves, it's just one lump of shit now, right?
It
I just
is.
call it content. And
Yeah,
like,
there's not a fine line like there used to be.
no, no, and like
At all.
if people ask me to talk to, I'm going and talking to some college kids in a couple weeks or whatever, and like I will probably pull some punches, but otherwise, what I would say honestly is like, number one, switch majors. Number two, like this is just content. If your shit's good, it's good, and people are going to find it no matter where it is. And if it's your stuff's not good, then it's not good.
Right. And
So
you're
it's
not going to make
really,
it.
yeah. I mean, it's really doesn't. It's not that much more complicated than that. I mean, look at the press boxes in Philadelphia now. You got bloggers sitting next to Philadelphia Inquirer. So it's
Yep.
not. We're all doing the same thing, you know.
Yep, it's changed. All right, you mentioned the Fanatic, and I had said on one of my shows earlier this week the whispers that I hear of lineup changes happening at the Fanatic, and it's going to be internally. So essentially, shuffling the chairs on the deck. And I know that Scott Masteller had said, the program director of the Fanatic had said in the Inquirer interview that he did, that they're going to hire a full time host. But the information in what I've heard is that the best show ever, nothing that is going to remain. That's not going to be changed. And from there, you're going to see some shuffling of the shows around. And then I guess they're going to bring somebody in, I would say, to work middays, one of the midday shifts that they're going to have. But it seems like that they're not going to do a whole heck of a lot. They're going to add somebody to it, and they're going to try to switch around the shows to see if that can kind of turn things around.
It's funny. You've probably heard more than I have, or the same things from the same people, you know. So now, as I, the longer I do this, like news breaking stuff, it's like I can try to identify like flows of like, where information is coming from. But I think what their idea is, yes, is like let's like give it a try with what we have, and we're gonna do a rearrangement here. We're not gonna blow it out of the water. I mean, best show ever is the best performing
Yes.
day part that they have, right? I mean, and it's funny, man, because I did a and there's the obligatory worst show ever comment in the comments here.
Yep.
It's it's funny because I did a I think when they won there was a Radio Wars ratings post from like a year ago where I noted in the headline like best show ever. People thought I was complimenting, like blowing sunshine up the best show ever's ass because I said, oh, they got a 3.8 or something like that, which is nothing to write home about. But they actually went up in a book when everybody else at the Fanatic went down, and they were also the highest performing show at the Fanatic. Now, difference between like a 3.8 and a 3.2 is ultimately negligible, but when your ratings are that low to begin with, then yeah, I mean, like half of a point is meaningful.
Well, that's what keeps you from getting whacked. If the show's going downhill, then they're going to look at potential changes. But the
Yeah.
fact that they are improving tells you that they see improvement from it.
Right. So you're going to come in, you're going to mess with your one show that's showing some upward, mobility, some trending upward. Right. I mean, that would be dumb. So
Agreed.
you look at mornings. John's show obviously has not registered in the ratings or sort of grabbed a foothold the way that maybe they thought it would. Middays has had a gap there. Obviously, Andrew's just kind of been, covering for Gargano ever since the lawsuit happened, right? And yeah, I mean, you and I guess, have heard probably the same thing about like trying to break it off into those 4 slots, kind of like when you and I think it was you and Sean, right, and then Tony.
Yeah,
And
they had there was 2 2-hour midday shows. So it was like Tony and Harry, and then I was on with Sean for 2 hours. We each did 2 hours.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
also
I'm
blurry to me. I remember there was like a Vi and Gonzo show for a little bit that was like I think I called in to talk about Owen Schmidt or something 14
Oh,
years
is that
ago.
is that right? Yeah, no, that's right when the Fanatic went FM. Not long after that, it was Vi and
Yeah.
Gonzo. Oh, the good
Vi and
old days.
Gonzo. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like Dan Schwartzman at night or something like that. I think I
Sure.
called Schwartzman to talk about because he was asking if people liked this was like not long after the wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl halftime. You remember that? So the
Yes.
NFL got really, really conservative, and they just had on like these old British dudes, which I loved. It was like, the Rolling Stones and
Oh yeah,
whoever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Your grandfather's favorite band,
Schwartzman
probably.
was asking if we liked the Geezer Train or if we were ready to get it back to like pop stars or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like go into you might as well. You have to come in. You have to do a full evaluation of like what you have and at least do like anybody who starts at any level of any job managerial. Like I'm a line manager now. So it's like the first thing you do with everything is like you audit yourself. It's like, what are we doing that works? What are we doing that doesn't work? And it's easy. What shows get ratings? What shows don't get ratings? What shows get favorable responses? Which don't? For us, it's like, what is registering in Google Analytics and what's not? It's like
Yeah,
when
what
people come,
what
what,
gets you clicks? Yeah.
well, exactly right. I mean, that's why it's funny because it was like I was saying when I came on with you a couple weeks ago, all these people say nobody cares about this, or this is sport. Is this sports? I'm like, listen, man, I'm looking at this and it tells me that 50,000 people clicked on it. So I don't give a shit what it is or what it isn't. Like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing that if that's what people want to read. You know?
Right, like the most viewed video, the most viewed shows that I've done on YouTube are Herb from Northeast Philly, you, and Jamie Lynch, where we didn't talk about really any sports. We
Yeah.
talked about stuff, right? So no,
Yeah.
you're right. It's like people want to be like, oh, well, who cares about that? Well, you do, because you're commenting that you don't care about it. So clearly you do care about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sports adjacent. I mean, that's why I think when you were talking about your idea of like, doing a show where it's like just where guys talking about stuff. You know what I mean? I think when you get into that formula of like, oh, we have to get it back to this, we have to get it back to this. The best shows, I think, just naturally go off on their own. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And then you pull it back when you have to, but you don't have a program director in your ear 24/7 telling you what to get it back to.
Which is awesome. All right, we got about 4 minutes to go here. I saw earlier today. I want you to see this. I actually got a text message from somebody that said, "Is this? Why isn't this working?" Right here. Hold on.
Do you need me to vamp while you do technical stuff? Oh, never mind.
I got it. There you go. So it was from our old buddy Josh Innes.
Oh.
Said, I'll be doing a sports radio program today at 10 a.m. And he puts that out there like that because I'm sure he's looking for people from Philly to be like, oh. And, like naturally you see something like that and you know that the Fanatic has some lineup changes coming. You're like, could it be? So it wasn't. He ended up, I think he's doing some stuff he's in St. Louis now. He does afternoon drive at a rock station in St. Louis. So I think he's doing
that's
stuff.
where he's from, right? Isn't he from St. Louis?
I think St. Louis is where he identifies with the most. Yes, he's from St. Louis.
Oh, he identifies as a St. Louis.
Because before he identified as when he went back to Houston, he was like, this feels like the most home to me. So now he's back. But anyway, so he's not, he's just doing some stuff in St. Louis. Do you think that there's ever a day, because you know that he would love to come back to Philadelphia if he could get one of these stations to hire him, and we're talking about the Fanatic now, do you think the Fanatic would consider bringing Josh Innes back? And do you think that would work the second time around? Because I can tell you this, I've heard, and when I say I've heard, this means that I know, like they were considered bringing him in on a part-time basis to work weekends a number of years ago.
That's right.
And I think he fucked it up. I forget exactly what happened. But they were interested, and he was definitely interested. And something happened where it didn't end up happening. But I'll say this, and I think Scott Maslower's done a really good job, and I agree with his decision as far as the best show ever. You bring Josh Innes in, you're taking a risk of a culture issue and things like that, but you're going to get the most attention on your radio station that you've had in a really long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the issue was with why he didn't. They had talked about it and they had discussed, doing like a weekend thing or whatever. I think it just wasn't signed off on by. It wasn't like kosher with everybody there. I think, for lack of a better word.
Obviously Mike would have
was
had to
cool.
be okay with it, and I don't know if he was or he wasn't. And Anthony probably would have had to sign off on it as well because they had a history.
Yeah. Sorry, Pagan's messaging me here. I don't know that. Here's some breaking news. Should we do breaking news on this?
What do we got?
Okay. Scott Lauber says the issue with Brandon Marsh's knee arose a few days ago while he was working out, and it appeared to have been traced to floating cartilage that caused irritation. So there you go.
Yeah, so Marsh has knee surgery today, and everybody says, well, why the hell are you having knee surgery with spring training about to start?
Yeah. Did he injure himself playing with his kids like you and me or something? I have an MRI on Sunday, by the way. I screwed up my ankle playing basketball, so we will wait.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude. This is a true story. I have they're all dad friends. So they were my daughter's friends' parents. Torn ACL playing soccer, torn ACL playing basketball. And then we were doing this tennis tournament thing back in the summer, and I put a drop shot on this guy. He blows out his Achilles trying to run up and get it. 3 major injuries by dad. So the advice is to stay the hell away from competitive athletics.
I know. I'm turning 40 soon, so I'm kind of like, ooh, is this it for me? But I might have to start playing pickleball with you. Yeah, no, it's funny because the Josh thing was like, I know that they were interested and it just wasn't like, I think it was too soon, and like people there still didn't like him because of the Radio Wars thing and like the Black Roses going to Missinelli and all that stuff. So it was still kind of raw. I want to say is kind of gist that I got. But it would. I mean, Mike's not there anymore, obviously, and it's a pretty much a new lineup. I don't right. I mean, there's the what would be the thing that would keep him out now. I don't know.
I think I remember he did something that pissed off management when they were trying to bring him back. So he might have burned a bridge there.
Okay, well, that's a shocker to me, and
I would be surprised as well. I thought about it today. I got to get him on the show. I'm going to get him on the show in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to at least ask him to do it.
He would do it.
I know.
He did Crossing Broad with Kyle and all them before I was even part of the website.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't, again, but right. You're like, if you're looking to make a splash, that's the kind of move that would do it.
And by the way, he may eventually blow himself up, but he's talented and he's funny. He did a really good. I mean, I didn't listen to it a lot, by being honest, but I know that there were a lot of people that enjoyed his show, and when he left, like there was a lot of people that were that weren't happy because he still has fans in the city. So.
Well, and I mean, the thing that I appreciate, I wasn't Josh's biggest fan, but the thing that I did like was like that he just didn't give a shit about like whatever traditional Philly stuff. Like he just came in and wanted to do his show. He didn't care what, Eagles fans of 40 years thought about this or that. It was very not parochial in a very parochial city. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like the antithesis of that. Maybe you burn yourself out after, a couple years, but if you're the Fanatic, like, hey, could we take, is that a risk worth running? Maybe if you're down as far as you are now, maybe it's something you consider. But I don't know. Maybe the ship has sailed. Maybe it hasn't.
All right. Well, listen. Have a good date night.
Boyertown, baby. Yeah, I never thought I'd be taking my wife there at some point, but
what kind of cuisine are you having?
I have no idea. Actually, it's a new place that I haven't even been to before. I sent her 2 options, and she picked the one. I was like, all right, we're going there, and then we're gonna stop at this new brewery on the way home, this like milk store, this candy store that we used to ride our bikes to as kids. They converted it into a brewery, which is pretty cool. So we're hitting that up, and we're just going to drop the kids. We're going to bring the kids to the parents so they don't have to go anywhere. We're going to leave them there for a couple hours, then come back.
Well, enjoy, man. You deserve it.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on again. We'll get you on Crossing Broadcast again, all right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm ready. Let's do it. All right, there he is. Thank you, Kevin Kinkead, everybody. I will be back tonight at 9:00 live. We do it live every Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. at John Marks Media, JONMARKS Media, at John Marks Media. We'll talk to you tonight. Everybody have a good afternoon. Talk to you tonight. See ya.